Whatever rocks your socks, whatever spins your top, whatever winds your watch, whatever flips your flop, whatever turns you on, whatever flies your flag, whatever bangs your gong, or whatever swings your bag. Do it often, but do it well, 'cause nobody knows and there's no way to tell when the ride ends.
Good morning. My fourth cup of coffee today. It is 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock in the morning. But I woke up at 1:30 this morning to pee, as sometimes happens. And, well, as always happens. But on this night, I couldn't go back to sleep. So I've been up since 1:30 in the morning. And yes, 4 cups of coffee. Well, there goes Andrew and Dick. Andrew, who's walking back there, is responsible for the drone shot you just watched, coming in and the drone shot going out at the end of these videos. Andrew Mauser, Chayo Aerials. Let me throw in a, since the guy's walking through my background, let me throw him a little advertisement. So yeah, listen, I wanted to show you actually what the sea and the sky look like in the morning. I have shown you this view at sunset many times. We face west. This beach faces west, so we get great sunsets. This is what it looks like in the morning. But it's a choice of either show you the background or show you me. And if you followed this channel, you know which choice I will make. So listen, I got a comment this week. Some guy said, cover your chest, Steve. And another guy said, yeah, what's it? Thanks for the kindergarten art lesson. Because last weekend I showed you how I make paper mache. And I am making these paper mache medallions of turtle shells to go around the float that will be my entry, we hope, in the Turtle Day Parade next year. And this guy apparently thought that a video about Thailand, he was disappointed to see a tutorial in making paper mache in a video about Thailand. Well, dude, first of all, DIY is a huge genre on YouTube. There's a Chinese woman who made a paper mache whale. She's got 1.5 million views. I'm not as cute as she is, but I use her paper mache recipe. Yeah, it's all kinds of things online on YouTube that get, you know, many tens or hundreds of thousands of views. How to do this: gardening, carpentry, upholstery, refurbishing your car, whatever it is, DIY, do it yourself. It even has an acronym, right? And even how to remove the muffler from your little motorcycle. Even within our little Farang ghetto of Thai-themed old white guy videos, it's really well represented. A guy named Thorsten Leppick built an entire Viking longhouse out of teak up in somewhere, knock on nowhere, and chronicled the whole thing online. George Bowman will show you how to cook a pizza in Pizzanulog online. These things, everybody who's here, certainly everybody who's retired to Thailand, has a hobby, has something they do. You know, Roland has slot cars in his basement, and he's built a huge diorama for his slot cars with mountains and trees and stands with spectators, little tiny spectators. Some guys are tying fishing flies. There's a guy up north, he's raising worms. You can go online, you can go to his YouTube channel and learn how to raise worms and dry them out and sell them for chicken feed in Thailand. Certainly planting rambutan, planting banana. Here's what I do. Here's how I cut the weeds on my 3 rai of land. It's just old guys' hobbies. And DIY, you know, everybody likes to look. So if you don't like, you know, my little art projects, you don't like glue and glitter, fine, you know, don't watch. but it's certainly a legit genre. It has a place in Thai-themed videos, and if you don't like it, go watch The Worm Guy. The Worm Guy is always there. You can go watch The Worm Guy. What's his name? George? Anyway, people teaching how to grow mushrooms. People teaching how to grow ganja, right, in Thailand. How to open a ganja store in Thailand. How to scrape barnacles off the bottom of your boat in Phuket. All of these videos are there, and they're all getting tens of thousands of views. And why Steve can't chronicle his hobby, his retirement hobby. I can't afford a yacht to scrape barnacles off the bottom of it, so I make a styrofoam turtle, and that's what it is. And you don't like it, go watch The Worm Guy. I share this with you. So yeah, I used to do the Weekend Millionaire. This table. There we go. The table's about to collapse under the camera. I had been, for the 16 months I've been here, I live just north of Phuket, and so once a month I'd go to Phuket for 3 days, go shopping, have meals with friends, and see a young woman of my acquaintance, and shack up with her for 3 days a month. And that was wonderful. It was just enough time to be with somebody who is, in all respects, a perfect stranger. But you're going to share a bathroom with that perfect stranger for 3 days. 3 days is exactly the right amount of time for that. And in recent months, the last couple times I did it, I was able to quit smoking here at home for 27 days because I promised myself that when I went to Phuket for my Weekend Millionaire experience, I would smoke as much as I wanted. And I did, 5 packs in 3 days. And I was able to then quit at home. However, this time I told the young lady, I have this hernia operation I got to pay for. I need to save money. So I think probably 4 or 5 months I'm not going to be able to come to Phuket. And that basically, I think, means the end of the relationship. I'll try to look her up in 4 or 5 months if I go back. But I think, that big a gap. And she took it. She was not that enamored of my company, I guess, that she was going to even pretend to shed any tears. And we parted on amicable terms. We parted very civilized, very adult, very mature. Thank you, baby. It's been great. I like you. Yeah, let's keep in touch online. But meanwhile, I think I'm probably never going to see you again. As soon as I didn't have the promise of those 3 days, I started smoking at home. Started with, buying Lucy's, bought 2 Lucy's just before bedtime. Went all day without a cigarette. I've earned it. I'm gonna buy 2 Lucy's and smoke them before bedtime. Well, the next day 4, because it's a particularly stressful day, and this is going on and that's going on. Yesterday I smoked 12 cigarettes, which is much better than the 20 a day that I typically smoke. But what's interesting about this is I was able to quit that woman, without any karmic pain, psychic pain anyway. And she was able to quit me without any psychic pain, but I can't quit smoking. It is easier to give up pussy than it is tobacco. That is my observation. I was talking to a guy this week. A fella came over and visited, very nice guy, bought me a meal, very intelligent, very smart guy, been here almost 20 years. And he was telling me this story about an encounter with police. On Phuket, the police stop foreigners just to get money out of them. Tell you were riding without a helmet when you had a helmet on. And this guy got pulled over, and he has a foreign driver's license. He has the international driver's license. He's got a work permit. He's got a year-long visa. He's settled here. He's got Thai kids. He's been here almost 20 years. And he chafed a bit at this particular police officer pulling him over and extorting money. So he argued with the police officer, and the police officer took him down to the police station, and they had this argument, and various other actors got involved, various other constituencies were heard from. And eventually, after a lot of yada, 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 he said, we made a deal for 500 baht, and they let me go. And I thought, 500 baht? What was the original extortion request? He said 1,000 baht. Now this guy's got 100 times more money than me. Almost anybody watching this will have 100 times more money than me. I live very well, thank you. But I do it, because my needs are few. But this guy, like most everybody, has a lot more money than me. And I thought, man, if a cop stopped me and said, yeah, you get out of here for 1,000 baht, I'd give him 1,000 baht right away. I wouldn't even think about it. 1,000 baht to get out of trouble? Sure. Yeah, bada bing, bada boom, baby, and off you go on your way. I'm not sure to this moment why this guy thought 1,000 baht. I guess he'd say it's the principle of the thing. I guess. And if the principle is that important to you, then by all means fight it and stick to your guns and see what you get out of it. I for 1,000 baht, man, I would not provoke a cop. I got to live here. These guys are going to see me driving down the road every goddamn day. I'm not going to piss these guys off for 1,000 baht. But it reminded me of a story. I think there's a little baby dead snake over there. The sun's coming up. I can see things. I think that's a dead snake over there on my front porch. So in 1995, I was invited. I was a journalist at that time, a columnist. I was invited to join the first diving expedition into the Maragui Archipelago, which is a chain of 300, 800 islands that goes north of here up past Ranong and up into Burma. And it has been disputed territory for a long, long time. So it's been closed to outsiders, I think basically since the end of World War II, certainly since independence, since Myanmar got its independence. So nobody had ever been up there. And this local company, Siam Divers, had gotten permission. They'd lobbied for years, the generals in Myanmar, handed out Rolex watches like candy. Finally got permission to go in there. So they had a yacht called the Gaia, a trimaran. They're going to send these, they had these 6 tourists signed up to go diving in the Maragui. Absolutely virgin, unexplored territory. Never been a drive trip in there, never been a yacht charter in there. The Burmese Navy is fighting the Thai fishing fleets, and the Burmese Navy is outgunned massively by the Thai fishing boats. And off they go. And they said, Steve, would you like a junket? If you don't mind sleeping on deck, you can come on this trip for free. So I said, great. So I get on the boat, and on deck with me is a guy named Bob Kogan, who was a naturalist and a dive enthusiast and a dive journalist. But before that, he'd been an ACLU lawyer who, as a very young man, argued successfully in front of the United States Supreme Court to win Navajo Indians the right to eat peyote at their wedding ceremonies. And on the strength of that, he went on to a very lucrative career defending pot growers in Northern California. He got a reputation as a crusading pot lawyer, and that's what he did, and became very well-to-do. And then in his retirement, he traveled around the world diving. So he was invited to be, the only man in town who lives more cheaply than Steve. So Bob was on the deck with me, a great old guy, and we had some pot, and we were having a good time. But we were challenged twice at sea by the Burmese Navy. And both times we had this guy on board, this Burmese guy I called the General's nephew. And each time that a Burmese, he stayed most of his time in his cabin reading books. But he would come out on deck when we were challenged by Burmese authorities on these Navy boats, these gunboats. And he would get up on deck and he would scream at them in Burmese in his floral skirt and his government bureaucracy shirt. He would scream at them and they'd go away. He was our minder from the General's Department of Tourism, and he was there to make sure we didn't get in trouble. So one night we're having a party on deck, as we always did, and Jimmy Buffett's playing, and there's cocaine, and there's champagne, and there's marijuana, and there's fish. This Japanese engineer on the trip is pulling live fish out of the water on a hand line, and he's cutting them up and serving them with sticky rice, and we're eating fresh fish raw fish right out of the water. And it's about 10 o'clock at night, and Orion is standing on his head on the tip of the mast, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And suddenly, there's these two canoes on either side of our yacht. In each canoe is 3 Burmese soldiers with M16s, rusty M16s, 3 young men, teenagers, in floral skirts and tattered khaki uniform shirts. And they're Burmese army, and they've been stationed on this island because the Thai fishing fleets have to come ashore periodically to get fresh water. And so they'll come to these islands, again, 800 uninhabited, undeveloped islands in this archipelago. And the Burmese army would just station troops on various islands waiting for the Thai fishermen to come get water. And they would catch them and hold them for ransom. So these soldiers had never seen a boat like the Gaia before. And all these semi-naked people these white people partying and living it up on the deck of this boat with barely anything on their bodies. So they came out there, and their commanding officer, who was about 18, and the one with the sidearm, and then 5 other soldiers in 2 boats, dugout canoes, and they glide up alongside our boat. And their heads and the guns are just right over the deck. We can just see their heads and their guns. And the general's nephew starts arguing with this guy, and it's obvious this soldier doesn't give a rat's ass who the general's nephew's uncle is. He's going to take this boat. This is the biggest prize he'll ever get in his career, and he's going to take this boat and all of us prisoner, and he wants us all to get in the rubber dinghy and get on shore right now. Well, we can see about a dozen other soldiers on shore waiting for us. We can see their cheroots. We can see them smoking cheroots. It's about 10 o'clock at night. All the women on our boat evaporate. They all went downstairs, locked themselves in the galley, and grabbed every sharp knife they could and huddled up silently with the lights off in the galley down below. And the men stood around on deck, and I picked up a winch handle. I remember Bob Cogan had an empty wine bottle in his hand. And by God, we were ready to face our enemies with their rusty M16s. And it's all these teenage boys, and they're like grinning at us they're like here on the deck with their guns, and they're like grinning at us. And this argument's going on and on and on and on. And finally, at the end of it, and I'll tell you, I was scared, man. I was pretty scared. I was pretty frightened. And at the end of it, the general's nephew gives the soldier in charge of the canoe a carton of Marlboro Red cigarettes. And they bow, and they disappeared. Canoes went away, the lights of the cheroots on shore went away, and once again we were all alone in this deserted bay under the stars and the moon out in the middle of the Paraguay archipelago. And the captain fired up the engine and he got us the hell out of that bay and put us in another undiscovered, unpopulated, undeveloped bay that could have had its own dozen soldiers, I suppose. But that's where we spent the night. And this could have been an international incident. This could have been the kidnapping and holding for ransom of a dozen foreign international tourists. Not a dozen. I think there were 8. Sometime I'll go through, I'll tell you. I think there were 8. There was a Swiss couple who never wore clothes, never put on clothes. And he was the Ovaltine executive in charge of Uganda. And he had sold the most Ovaltine that year in Africa. And he won a round-the-world trip from the Ovaltine company. And he could take a +1, but he was divorced and didn't have a girlfriend. So on the first leg of his round-the-world trip on a Swiss Air flight, he asked the stewardess, "Hey, do you want to go around the world with me?" She said, "Yeah." And that's who it was, this like 60-year-old Ovaltine executive and his 21, 22-year-old Swiss Air hostess he had just met. And they're traveling around the world together. It's going to take like 14 months or something to go around the world. And they've just signed on together, and they're having the time of their lives. Neither one of them wore a stitch of clothing the whole trip. And there was the Japanese engineer with the hand line and his Chinese girlfriend, and I never found out what she did because she never spoke English. It was me and Bob on the deck. And who else? There was one more. A middle-aged couple from Oregon who owned a sporting goods store. And that was us on the Gaia, and there was a crew of 3. And we all were this close to being held prisoner on a deserted island by teenagers with automatic weapons. And it was a carton of Marlboro Reds that got us out of it. Yeah, man, spend the carton of Marlboro Reds. You know, what are you fighting? Give the cop 1,000 baht and get the hell out of there. 19 minutes. That's a very long monologue. Thank you very much for your attention. Like, subscribe, and share. I mean, I know you hear those from every vlogger every week, but like, subscribe, share. I don't know. I may stick a couple minutes of paper mache at the end of this. You never know. And you're welcome. Otherwise, know that I really, really appreciate your attention. I enjoy doing this a lot, and I'm glad somebody else comes along and spends time with me. Otherwise, I'd be doing this all by myself. And believe me, if you weren't watching, I would be doing this all by myself. But I'm very, very glad you're here. I love you guys very much. To everybody in America, I love you guys very much too. And thank you for sticking with me and watching these. I miss you guys a lot. So that's it. I'll see you next week. Thank you very much. Have a terrific week. That's all she wrote. Oh, it's a nice one tonight. I love it. Only one set of footprints on the beach. Mine. To boldly go where no man has gone before. One small step for man, dropping the article from a line he'd rehearsed for months. One giant leap for mankind. Okay, a little too dramatic, sorry.
Whatever shaves your sheep, whatever bakes your clam, whatever digs your peat, whatever smokes your ham, whatever blows your nose, whatever chews your bone, whatever squirts your hose, whatever sings your song. Do it often, but do it well. Nobody knows and there's no way to tell. When you're riding, shoot